Today was full of so many things. Tomorrow will be too, so have pleasant dreams. Grab your PJs, brush your teeth, don't forget Puffy. It's time to sleep. So we're gonna read a book today called Goodnight Brew. Got my little buddy here. He's gonna listen with us here. Yeah, and everybody out there can listen too. It is a parody for beer people, and since it's close to bedtime and I'm a beer person, I think this is perfect. It's by Anne E. Briated, illustrated by Ali Ogg. Goodnight Brew. In the great brew room there was a kettle that shone, and a gramophone, and a pitcher of what? Chocolate stout with 2 feathers of foam. And there were 3 little otters in charge of the water. Water, very important for beer. For fermenting, some yeast. And hops, a wild beast. And of course, I love his shirt because it says, I love IPA. And a black bear named Charlie, and sweet malted barley, and bottles and clogs, and a whirling warthog. And a flavorful cash, and a whole ton of mash, and a baritone brewer with a foamy mustache. The best kind of mustache. Goodnight Brew. Goodnight Crew. Goodnight Mooney Cockatoo. Goodnight Cash. And Goodnight Mash. Goodnight Kettle and tanks of metal. Goodnight Barley. Goodnight Charlie. And Goodnight Wildebeest. And Goodnight Yeast. Apparently that's what yeast looks like. Just dots. Goodnight Bottles and Barefoot Waddles. Goodnight Saison. Goodnight Wheat. Goodnight Porter and Clogged Feet. Goodnight Stout and IPA. Goodnight Bock and Hog Ballet. Goodnight Waltz and Derrieres. Goodnight beer lovers everywhere. And now, there's some brew basics to learn. The ingredients, which is the holy quadrinity of water, malted barley, brewer's yeast, and hops. step by step is the mashing, which is where you put malted and milled barley and hot water into the mash tun for an hour or more. The starches are converted into sugars, and this process is called saccharification. Then you go to lautering, and that's separating the mashed barley from the liquid, which is called wort. You feed the porridge-like mash to the cows and the chickens, and you keep the liquid, where brewing step 3 begins. You boil the wort in the brew kettle and add hops for bitterness, aroma, and flavor. My favorite part. Then there's fermenting, which takes the longest. You pitch the yeast into a cooled wort and allow a week or more to ferment, and then cure the music for ta-da! The yeast cells eat the sugar in the wort and give off alcohol and carbon dioxide. In other words, beer. Step 5 is conditioning. After fermenting, beer spends time in a conditioning tank to allow its flavors to mature. Only sometimes. Some beers are also filtered after conditioning and before being placed into ready-to-drink from containers. Packaging. Now, you get to put the beer into containers of your choice, like kegs, bottles, and cans, growlers, crowlers, etc. And 7, my favorite part, drinking. Now it says under flavors that besides wort and hops, brewers can add lots of other goodies to the brew kettle to flavor their beer. The flavorfulness of everything in this story shows a few flavorites, which is their favorites. Sometimes wheat, oats, rye are added to malted barley in the mash. Drinking. That's the drinking part. And last but not least, a brief explanation of beer types. Very similar and very simple beer types. 2 main types, it says. Ales and lagers. Ales have been around for thousands of years and are made from a yeast which ferments at warmer temperatures at the top of a brew. Ales tend to be fruity and aromatic and with more robust and complex flavors, sometimes including bitter or sour. You can have blonde, brown, IPA, porter, saison, stout, and wheat ales. For lagers, the whippersnappers of the beer family tree here. Lagers have only been around for about 200 years. They are made from yeast, which ferments at cooler temperatures, at the bottom of the brew. Lagers tend to have a light, clean, crisp kettle taste. You can easily remember this because ales are at the top, which is A. Lagers, cooler and at the bottom, which in alphabetical order, L, is later. Common types of lagers: Bock, Dortmunder, Dunkel, Oktoberfest, and Pilsner. And that's it. Goodnight Brew and good night.